All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking both the hard science and the lingering mystery behind Bilwadi. Now, if you've ever looked into traditional Ayurvedic medicine, you know it's filled with some absolutely fascinating and frankly sometimes unbelievable claims. So we're going to put this specific classic formula under the microscope today. We're combining ancient texts with modern clinical data to figure out what's really going on here. Because, get this, we're going to explore how this one single formula is used for everything from your basic, everyday indigestion to severe, venomous stings, and incredibly, even a comatose patient in septic shock. I mean, it sounds like a total medical paradox, right? How can one preparation possibly bridge that massive gap between a mild upset stomach and an absolute intensive care emergency? Well, that's exactly the mystery we're unpacking for you today.
First things first, let's establish what this actually is. Bilwadi, which you'll also hear called Bilwadi Agada, is an ancient preparation first mentioned in classic Indian medical texts, like the Ashtanga Hridaya. In the traditional Ayurvedic system, it's categorized primarily as a Vishagna. Basically, that translates to a destroyer of poisons or toxins, but it's also highly recognized as a general health tonic, or Rasyana.
Okay, so here's where it gets wild. The botanical blend here is incredibly complex. It's built on exactly 14 equal parts, creating this highly specific synergistic mix. You've got familiar kitchen staples, things like turmeric, ginger, and black pepper, but then they're combined with really unique traditional elements, like the root of the sacred bael tree and, yes, purified goat urine. Every single ingredient, however surprising it might sound to us today, was carefully chosen to balance the body and target very specific ailments.
Now, the most striking thing about this formula is the sheer contrast in how it's used. Just look at this spread. One moment it's prescribed for everyday GI issues, soothing an upset stomach, managing dysentery, or just neutralizing heartburn. But then, in the ancient toxicology branch known as Agada Tantra, it's literally deployed for extreme emergencies, scorpion stings, cholera, and even severe systemic chemical poisoning. Let's start with those everyday gastrointestinal applications. And we aren't just relying on old historical texts here either. We're turning to a recent in vitro study from the Krishna Institute of Allied Sciences. They actually wanted to scientifically quantify these traditional digestive claims. The researchers essentially asked, does this ancient 14-part mix actually neutralize stomach acid in a measurable, undeniable way?
So how do you actually test that? Well, researchers meticulously put the formulation through its paces in a strict laboratory setting. They suspended the ingredients in water and then introduced hydrochloric acid, which perfectly mimics your natural stomach acid. They let it react for about 15 minutes and then measured exactly how much sodium hydroxide was needed to bring the pH back to a stable threshold of 3.5. It's basically a recipe for finding the formula's exact acid neutralizing capacity.
And the result? A highly measurable acid neutralizing capacity of 25.43 milliequivalents. Now, in pharmacological terms, this is a big deal. This isn't just folklore anymore, it's hard test tube evidence showing that this ancient mix genuinely neutralizes highly acidic environments. It gives us a definitive scientific basis for why people have used it for hyperacidity for centuries.
But what's really fascinating is how the ingredients actually work together. When you isolate them, herbs like ginger and turmeric definitely show their own respectable antacid properties. We kind of expected that. But when you combine them into the full Bilwadi formula, boom. The antacid effect spikes dramatically. It's like a giant puzzle where all the pieces fit perfectly. A textbook scientific demonstration of synergy, where the whole is literally greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay, let's shift gears now. We're moving from the controlled, safe environment of the laboratory test tube to the high-stakes, intense world of Agada Tantra. Remember, this is the Ayurvedic discipline dedicated entirely to treating extreme, life-threatening toxicity. So the big question is, how does a formula that settles your stomach step up to save a life?
To understand this, we really have to grasp the concept of dushavisha. In traditional texts, dushavisha refers to internal, latent toxins that just accumulate in the body over time. Think of it like this. When your body fails to fully expel an infection or poison, it lingers, and that can lead to chronic impairment or sudden, severe systemic shock. Keep this concept in your back pocket because we are about to see it applied to a very dramatic modern medical emergency.
Which brings us to a really compelling 2022 medical case report. Picture this. Doctors are treating a 67-year-old man in critical condition. He's completely unconscious, scoring just a 7 on the Glasgow Coma scale. He's got severe gangrene in his lower limbs, and tragically, his body is totally unresponsive to 14 straight days of intense IV antibiotics. He was shutting down. Now, in Ayurvedic terms, this overwhelming systemic shock was diagnosed as a severe case of dushavisha.
You really have to see this timeline to believe it. By the evening of June 21st, his vitals were just plummeting. His oxygen saturation crashed to a life-threatening 49%, and his pulse dropped to a dangerously slow 40 beats per minute. Completely out of standard options, doctors applied the Bilwadi formula, and what happened next is nothing short of remarkable. Within just a few hours, his oxygen stabilized at a healthy 97%, his pulse normalized to 90, and the patient actually regained consciousness.
Now, here is the absolute wildest part of this story: the application method. The patient was completely comatose, right? Which means he couldn't simply swallow a pill. So, the doctors applied the medicine directly into his eyes. Using a traditional technique called anjana, they spread a fine medicinal paste right across the corners of his eyes.
I know what you're thinking. How on earth does eye paste reverse systemic shock? Well, it all comes down to bypassing the gut entirely. A critically ill patient has a completely sluggish, ineffective digestive system. But by applying the paste to the eye, the medicine penetrates the sclera and hits the highly vascularized tissues inside, like the iris. From there, it literally acts like an expressway, shooting those active ingredients directly into the systemic bloodstream to fight the shock.
But it doesn't stop at sepsis. Traditional literature heavily indicates Bilwadi Aga for neutralizing actual venom, specifically from scorpion stings. The formula is believed to act so rapidly because of its inherently hot potency, a concept known as ushna virya. This heat supposedly allows it to quickly penetrate tissues and counteract the cold, depressing, and toxic effects of envenomation throughout the whole body.
Now, we do have to pump the brakes for a second. It's vital to acknowledge the gaps in our current understanding. As researchers pointed out in a recent systemic review, despite all these historical claims of treating chemical poisoning, which is known as garavisha, formal clinical trials on this specific application are currently non-existent. We have the ancient text, for sure, but we are still waiting on the modern clinical data to actually back it up.
And this enthusiasm for traditional cures has naturally intersected with modern issues, like pandemics. Some scholars have proposed using Bilwadi Agada preventatively for COVID-19. They note that ancient texts attribute antimicrobial and antiviral properties to it. They point out shared symptoms like fever and digestive issues, and have even proposed a theoretical dosage of 2,000 milligrams a day. But, to be completely clear and impartial here, researchers strictly state these claims remain entirely hypothetical. Without extensive, large-scale clinical trials, this is just theory. It is not a proven treatment.
So, what's the big takeaway here? As we attempt to bring these ancient, powerful remedies into evidence-based healthcare, standardizing their production becomes absolutely critical. We have to ensure that every single batch is safe, completely free of contamination, and offers a consistent quality that doctors and patients can actually rely on before they ever take a dose.
Luckily, modern science is stepping up to provide that safety net. Recent analytical profiles using advanced techniques like high-performance thin-layer chromatography have thoroughly evaluated the formula, and the results are great. Tests confirmed the total absence of dangerous aflatoxins and tested completely negative for harmful heavy metals like cobalt, mercury, and silver. Plus, the pills successfully disintegrated in under 15 minutes, which ensures they can actually be properly absorbed by the body. But listen, and this is absolutely crucial. Even with its impressive history and this emerging scientific backing, medical experts note a very vital caveat. While these historical remedies show immense supportive potential, they are complementary. They should never ever replace urgent modern allopathic treatments for immediate life-threatening events. They are a powerful tool in the medical toolkit for sure, but certainly not the only one.
We are really just beginning to decode ancient formulas like Bilwadi Vadi. We're validating acid neutralization in the lab, and we're documenting miraculous recoveries in the ICU, which leaves us with this final really exciting thought. What other ancient formulas, tucked away in centuries-old texts, hold untapped medical potential, just waiting for modern science to unlock their secrets?